Hazardous items are prohibited at stations and on trains. If you notice any suspicious item, leave it. Station number S56. The doors on the left. ご乗車ありがとうございました。
Hi everyone, Brody here. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. In the next part of the video, I'll share a rough guide on how to hike the Ōmine Okugakemichi based on my experience completing the trail in May 2025. Let's begin with a brief history of the trail. So high in the mountains of Japan's Kii Peninsula lies the Ōmine Okugakemichi, which is more than just a hiking trail. It's a sacred path that has been walked for over 1,300 years. It was established in the late 7th century by Enno Yoja, the founder of Shugendō, which is a unique Japanese belief system that blends Buddhism, Shinto, and Taoist beliefs. His followers, known as Yamabushi, use the mountains as their training ground, pushing themselves through intense ascetic practices. They believe that enduring the challenges of nature could lead to spiritual awakening and provide them with supernatural powers like healing and communication with spirits. Every peak, shrine, and stone marker along the trail carries spiritual meaning. The extreme difficulty of the trail was intentional and a way to purify the body and mind. The route runs from Mount Yoshino to Kumano Hongu and is part of the wider Kumano Kodo pilgrimage network. But unlike the more popular routes like the Nakahechi and others, the Omine is extremely remote, rugged, and considered the most physically demanding of them all. In 2004, the route was officially recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site along with the other Kumano Kodo trails. And even though that few monks walk it today, it still feels like a living, breathing part of Japan's spiritual history, and it's a serious journey for anyone willing to take it on. Before we get into the details, an important note. Please do your own research and make sure you're working with the most up-to-date information. This is not a beginner trail. I'd rate it intermediate to hard. There are long stretches where you may not see anyone for days, reception is limited, and the route itself is largely self-supported. Some sections are exposed and technical and require confidence and sound judgment. There are real risks involved. People have been injured, gone missing, and unfortunately lost their lives. Just a week before my trip, I read on Yamap's notice board about a hiker who got lost, ran out of supplies, and had to be emergency evacuated after several nights alone. I'm not saying this to discourage anyone, but to emphasize how important proper preparation is. With the right planning, gear, and mindset, this can be an incredible experience. Without them, things can go wrong pretty quickly. Be honest about your ability, prepare thoroughly, and respect the trail. With all that being said, let's get into it. Alright, so getting to the trailhead, so most hikers conduct the hike from north to south, starting in the town of Yoshino, which is in Nara Prefecture, and ending in Hongu, where the Kumano Hongu Tashi Shrine is, which is in Wakayama Prefecture. You can also hike in reverse, from south to north. If you're coming from Osaka though, starting in Yoshino is easier to get to, and in my opinion, a better way to conduct the hike. I'll explain as to why later in the video. So I'm going to assume that you've flown in or traveled into Prefecture into Osaka, so we'll use that as a starting point. I actually arrived that morning from Bangkok, Thailand, and took the express train from Kansai Airport into Osaka, where I headed to Tennoji Station, and there's a substation called Osaka Abunabashi, where the Kintetsu Nara line begins. From there I took the Kintetsu Limited Express to Yoshino, which is about an hour and 20-minute journey and roughly costs 1,700 yen, and the train runs every hour. So the town of Yoshino, it's pretty small. There's one Lawson in town, a few restaurants, a supermarket, but that's about it. It's really pretty though. It's nestled along the Yoshino River, and really friendly locals. I met this elderly lady who had a little store, and once she found out that I was gonna do the hike, she gave me some sweets and some bread for my journey for the next day. Really sweet. So I actually got into Yoshino in the afternoon. So I rented an Airbnb so I could sleep the night and start the trail early in the morning. I got off at Ōmine Okugakemichi station, and that's the same station that I walked to in the morning, where I took the train, which was 2 stops away from Yoshino, which is where the trailhead begins. So let's go over the route. Just to give you some context of where we are, Tokyo is in the top right hand corner, Kyoto and Osaka, and if we zoom in here to Nara and Wakayama Prefecture, we can see the route. Now this is a GPX file that I'll upload to my AllTrails. I'll provide a link in the description. So as you can see, the route is roughly around 90 kilometers in length and approximately 7,000 meters of total elevation. I've gone ahead and marked the individual campsites of where I camped every night, whether it be wild camping or within a cabin. Here's a 3D view to give you a better idea of the terrain. So if we zoom in here, we start the hike in Yoshino, which is around 200 meters above sea level. And as you can see, we are essentially traversing the tops of all these mountains. So that's what makes the hike pretty hard going. The total ascent and descent is pretty much the same. So there's a lot of up and down undulations, exposed rocky outcrops, and scrambling. Now we make our way up to the highest point, which is just past Mount Misen, which is Mount Hakyo-Getaki, and that's the highest mountain in Kansai at 1,915 meters. So why I suggest hiking the route from north to south? One, it's easier to get to the trailhead in Yoshino, but two, the first portion of the hike, the first 40 kilometers all the way up to Mount Misen, there's a lot more human interaction. There's a temple, there's some manned cabins where you can buy more supplies. So if you run into trouble during this portion of the hike, I think you can get some assistance. That being said, the next 40 to 50 kilometers from Mount Misen is pretty remote, and in my opinion the terrain is a bit more difficult. I hardly had cell signal most of the time, and there was a portion where I didn't see anyone for 2 days straight. So if you run into trouble during this portion of the hike, you're going to have to hike your way up. So that being said, I think it's easier to start off with the easier portion of the hike and gauge how you're going before you endeavor on this more remote part. So I tracked my entire hike using my Garmin watch. I'll leave a link in the description where you can check out my full activity stats, including distance, route, temperature, and daily breakdowns. That said, I wouldn't recommend following my exact route, as I had to backtrack several times for filming and ended up breaking trail multiple times. In total, I covered 111 kilometers, about 15 kilometers more than the official trail. Filming definitely slowed me down. I think I added additionally 2 to 3 hours of moving time each day. I originally planned to complete the hike in 5 days time, but it ended up taking 5 days and a bit. I had an appointment in Osaka on the 19th, so on the 18th I pushed through a big day, hiking well into the night, which got me just outside of town and left me with a 2 to 3 hour hike in the morning to Kumano Kodo. So a platform that I found extremely useful while planning this route was a Japanese hiking app called Yamaps. It's a social platform where hikers upload their trips and that data is aggregated, which creates highly detailed trail maps. You can see points like refuges, peaks, landmarks, water sources, points of caution all in one place. So before my trip, I searched Ōmine Okugakemichi and found a hiker who had put together a comprehensive overview of the entire route. It included photos, cabin locations, water access points, and key areas to be aware of. There was also a clear day-by-day breakdown of distance, elevation, and moving time. They even went to the trouble of creating a diary where they create a chronological hiking journal with detailed notes and images. Since I was planning this trip from Thailand without really knowing what to expect, it gave me a much clearer understanding of the terrain and facilities along the way. So to that hiker who shared that, thank you. It was incredibly helpful. I'll link their page in the description so you can check it out. I also use Yamaps mobile application whilst on trail. It allows you to download maps offline, which is essential because reception is limited for a large section of the route. To do that, you'll need a premium account. I believe they offer a 30-day trial or a monthly subscription. Once you're signed up, search for Ōmine Okugakemichi. The full route is divided into 5 grids and you need to go ahead and download each one of them. And if we view the actual map itself, you can see it's pretty detailed. It provides you rough hike times between points, points of caution, as well as water sources, which was helpful. And if we scroll down here, we can see mountaintops, where hut locations are. Yeah, so it's pretty detailed in general. I kept my phone switched off for most of the hike to conserve battery. Instead, I relied primarily on the GPX data from the hiker I mentioned earlier, which I downloaded from his profile and uploaded to my Garmin watch. that gave me a simple breadcrumb trail to follow. However, for whatever reason, the off-trail alert didn't always work. There were moments where I'd go on autopilot, drift off path, and realize I'd wandered slightly off route. When that happened, I'd switch my phone back on and check my exact location. It was also helpful to see how far to the next hut, how many more mountains I had to traverse, or where the next water source was. So using both these tools together worked really well in the end. That being said, you should always have a backup. I strongly recommend carrying a physical map and a compass. If you're relying entirely on battery powered devices and you lose trail or run out of power, you could quickly find yourself in trouble. So bring a map, bring a compass, and make sure you know how to navigate the old-fashioned way. Apart from that, the trail is pretty well signposted. You'll see these Japanese and English signs scattered throughout the trail, as well as pink ribbons, and in the first part, Nara prefecture ones. The second part of the hike, it's a bit harder to follow. Sometimes they're a bit more sparse or there's multiple ribbons, but if you use that in conjunction with your GPS, you should be fine. As for where I stayed, you can check my old trails, but a quick overview: the first night I wild camped, the next 3 nights I stayed in cabins, and on the final night I wild camped just outside of town. Along the trail, cabins are scattered throughout the route. Some are very basic and especially not well maintained, while others are better looked after by local hiking communities or volunteer groups. Those maintained cabins often have emergency supplies and usually require a small fee to stay. That said, you'll most likely need to bring camping gear. Some of the huts are spaced quite far apart, and the latter portion of the hike, there are very few available. The last thing I want to mention about the route is Mount Omine. Ōmine Sanji Temple doesn't allow women to enter due to a long-standing religious tradition. So if you're a woman and you're planning to hike this area, I found an alternative route that has a detour around the mountain. I'll link it in the description, but please do your own research as well. So let me quickly go over my pack list and everything I brought on the trail. What you're seeing here is a flat lay of all my gear, minus the water, some gas I picked up whilst in Japan, and a few extra snacks. Starting with the sleep system, I brought a single person hiking pole tent from Lanshan, which came in around 1.2 kilos. Along with that were 2 trekking poles, a Cedar Summit inflatable mattress, a pillow, and a down sleeping bag. That covered everything I pretty much needed for sleeping. In the top left hand corner was my Garmin watch, power bank, charging cables and charger, and earphones. You need a good quality headlamp, ideally rechargeable or have spare batteries on hand. Next was the camera gear. I shot this trip on a Fuji X-H2S with the 10-24 f4 lens and the Sennheiser MKE 440 microphone. I carried 3 extra batteries and a carbon fiber tripod. All up, the camera setup was around 2.6 kilos, which was a pretty significant portion of my overall weight. After that was my cooking system, which was very simple: just a cook pot, a gas head, titanium spoon, and collapsible water bag, and a basic water filter. Next was food. When it came to food, I probably packed more than I needed. I actually ended up leaving some items at a few cabins along the way, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I packed a bunch of electrolytes, instant oats, instant noodles, rice porridge, lots of snacks, and I picked up a few extra items whilst I was in Japan. I organized everything by day, and altogether the food weighed around 2.5 kilos. My toiletries and extras were very basic: a small first aid kit, some antiseptic wipes, sunscreen, toothpaste, portable bug net, kinesis tape, and emergency blanket and paracetamol. In terms of clothing, I kept things pretty minimal. I packed 3 shirts, 2 pairs of shorts, 1 pair of lightweight pants, a windbreaker, a Montbell thermowrap jacket, along with a hat and beanie. For footwear, I wore the Merrell Agility Peak 5s, which were perfect. They provided plenty of cushion and grip. And also I bought 3 pairs of wool socks. As for wet weather gear, I only had a poncho. In hindsight, I probably could have bought something a bit more heavy duty, especially since it rained for about a day to a day and a half with moderate to heavy downpours. By the end of it, my clothes were completely wetted out, but with that level of exposure of that period of time, it was bound to happen. Aside from the cold front that came in on day 3, the weather was generally moderate, mostly shorts and t-shirt conditions. it wasn't too cold at night, and it never became overly humid. Overall, the weather in May was fairly comfortable. The final items I brought was a lightweight umbrella, my passport, a notebook, sunglasses, and some cash. The cash was especially important as many of the cabins required payments to be left in the honesty box. I carried everything in my 40-litre Montbell pack, and all up the base weight was around 12.7 kilos. I had 3 litres water carrying capacity, which proved to be enough for the conditions. Once I added the gas and the extra food I picked up in Japan, my total pack weight was around 17 to 18 kilos. It was slightly on the heavier side, but still manageable on the trail. One thing I didn't bring and probably should have was bear deterrent. At the time, in May, concern levels went as high as they later became in 2025, when bear sightings and attacks increased in Japan. In Kansai, you have the Asiatic black bear, known for being more aggressive and unpredictable than the brown bears. In hindsight, I would have at least carried bear spray or a bear bell, both easy to find at Montbell, if only for peace of mind. Instead, I made sure to call out regularly, especially around blind corners and through thick shrubs. I saw clear signs of bear activity along the trail, scratched trees, bear scat, but thankfully I never had a direct encounter. I came across other wildlife, including deer and wild boar, which can be dangerous, though they were far off in the distance and never posed a direct threat. Another thing I should have brought was DEET or proper insect repellent, as I did end up getting bitten by a tick, which I had to remove, but luckily I had no ill side effects. To wrap up the video, here are a few final tips. First, download a translation app like Google Translate with Japanese available offline so you can read and translate signs along the way. Second, go slow. I completed the trail in 5 days, but if you have more time, break it up into shorter sections, stay at more huts, and really take in the whole experience. I think the average time is 7 to 10 days. Third, if possible, hike with a friend. Some sections are quite exposed and a slip in the wrong place could cause real trouble, so having a friend in tow would make things a lot safer. The fourth tip, water planning is crucial. I had quite a bit of anxiety around water collection and often carried more than I needed, sometimes arriving at the next stop with 2 litres still left. That said, in drier months, some water sources may not be available, so more thorough research ahead of time will help you plan more effectively and carry only what you need. Finally, getting back to Osaka, there are several transport options, but the Yagi Shingu bus is excellent value. I didn't realize it was essentially a sightseeing bus en route. It passes through charming towns in Wakayama, follows a beautiful river, and even stops at a large suspension bridge, while still being comparable in time to other options and much cheaper. It runs from Kumano Hongotashi to Takadashi Station, and from there it's a 30-minute ride into Osaka. I made it back in under 5 hours. So that's a wrap. If you've done this hike before or end up tackling it after watching this video, I'd love to hear about your experience in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on my next adventure. Happy hiking!